my colleagues and invite Monica Lennon to start the questioning.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning to all our witnesses this morning. George Graham, in your opening statement towards the end, you described what are good features, are good qualities in a board, including being responsive and listening to criticism. Do you believe that you've been part of a good board?
Yes, thank you for that question. Since Andrew Flanagan took over, I think in November 2015, all I can describe is a changing atmosphere on a board where we have become much more engaged. There is a clearer sense of purpose around what we're trying to do. We have been addressing, I think, a particular issue around information flow and our own credibility with senior police colleagues. If we are to govern the police service effectively, I think we have to understand what they are about. And I think Andrew Flanagan's governance review, which reported in the spring of 2016, and the many of the recommendations which have been accepted and which have been fairly uncontroversial have really helped us improve, I think. And I joined the board in June of 2015, and we are unrecognisably better than we were. We are still learning. We are still a very young and immature board. I think we would wish to stay responsive. I have great respect for Moy and great respect for her views, and she has expressed them pretty effectively this morning, and she did that to the board. But I don't recognise the characterisation of the board as she describes it. My view of the board, I certainly wouldn't be part of a board that was secretive, that didn't want to engage with stakeholders. I've been in public service for over 32 years as a police officer. I have no axes to grind. My pure ambition and passion is for the Police Service of Scotland to be the very best it can be. I think taking the decision to hold board meetings or committee meetings in private, because we actually hold all our board meetings in public and all our decisions about everything are now vested in the public meetings of the board. My view and why I elected to support that committee meetings would be in private is because we still do not yet have information flows right. We still do not have strong enough relationships with senior police officers in Scotland, but they are improving. And I think we needed some clear space to be able to consider complex and difficult issues. And please, if I could just finish on the final point, I know you want to challenge a few things I'm saying. I would hope that everyone would recognise that if we've got the balance wrong and we need to do more of our committee work in public, then we will do that. But I hope that this committee and commentators and indeed HMICS in the review, which they are about to do, recognises that every board needs at least some private space on which to decide and to make some decisions and to freely debate some of the complex issues and difficult issues that policing is going to face over the next 10 years following the consultation around the 2026 strategy.
Thank you, Mr Graham. You mentioned your background in policing, which I'm sure is very valuable to the board. Do you have experience of other boards, other appointments?
No, I don't. This is the first time I've sat on a public board. Yeah.
Okay. So you do recognise that the board hasn't been performing well?
I recognise that the perception that we have created around holding committee meetings in private has had a much bigger impact than I would have expected. But I am not an experienced public board member. I am a former senior police officer with a passionate ambition to help police in Scotland be the very best it can be. If this is a learning process, this committee process, what we've been through up till now, then I absolutely accept that we can still improve, we can still learn. I suspect that for all my time on the board, we will still be improving and learning.
Thank you. I'll move on to Moy Ali. Miss Ali, I've read the letter that Andrew Flanagan sent you in December after you had raised 2 objections to part of the governance review. Do you think that letter amounted to bullying?
Yes, I believe that it did. A good leader, if he had any concerns, would surely speak to an individual. I think all of us would do that. To write a letter of that nature, it's hard to find another word to describe what it amounts to.
And do you feel quite sad about this experience? Do you feel that you've been driven out?
Yes, I do. It's been a really horrendous experience. I'm quite surprised that 5 months after receiving the letter, we're still talking about it. It's been a very difficult thing to live through, particularly being outside of all of this on my own, not having access to materials. I mean, coming here today, I asked for information from the SPA. Not private information, but information about meetings I attended, information that I had previously held, and I was denied that. So I've been very much pushed to the outside, and actually what has happened, what's transpired as a result of that letter is exactly what I said would happen. I did seek to have a meeting with Andrew Flanagan very quickly, almost immediately after I received, the first working day after I received the letter, I asked for a meeting. And for a variety of reasons, that simply didn't happen.
Thank you. In a previous session, I asked Andrew Flanagan if he recognised that his conduct could be perceived as control freakery. He didn't accept that characterisation. In the time that I've been pursuing these questions, it strikes me that the SPA is very much a male-dominated organisation. Do you believe that he would have sent that same letter to a man?
No, I don't think he would. It's interesting, after I received it, I spoke to Ian White because he'd expressed very similar views to me at that board meeting. The only difference was that he didn't ask for his to be minuted. In a way, the minuting is irrelevant because it's live streamed and it's recorded for posterity anyway. But he raised very similar issues. I think his words were, I share many of the concerns that Moy has raised. He pushed on the point I pushed on about whether it confirmed with best practice. So I asked Mr. White if he had received a similar letter, and he said no, he hadn't.
Thank you. Given the letter and what you've just said in terms of feeling bullied, do you think Andrew Flanagan is fit to continue as chair of the Scottish Police Authority?
I'm afraid I don't. I think he's actually not fit to continue on any public board because he clearly doesn't observe public sector values. However, I think the police authority is in a different league because I think an oversight body that oversees policing has to set even higher standards of corporate governance, and he clearly has not observed those standards.
Can I turn to Brian Barber? You rightfully set out in your statement that the SPA has oversight of £1 billion of public spending. Given what Moy Ali has just said, do you believe that Andrew Flanagan is fit to continue in his role?
I have no experience of Andrew Flanagan because Andrew joined just after I left, but the story that Moy has given here makes me question his suitability for the role.
Thank you. Ian White, we've just heard from Moy Ali that you've raised similar concerns as Moy did, but you didn't receive a letter on Christmas Eve from Andrew Flanagan. Or did you receive any letter from Andrew Flanagan?
I didn't receive any letter from Andrew Flanagan. I suppose the difference between what Moy did and what I did, if there was one, was that Moy recorded her dissent to the board decision, and I didn't do that at the meeting, but I don't know why Andrew took a different approach otherwise. But I suppose at that meeting I didn't record my dissent because I accepted that board colleagues wished to make the decision, and I accepted that I could go along with that in the round, having questioned and sought assurances around the decision that was being made.
So, given what's happened to Moy, the consequences of recording dissent have been quite serious. It sounds like she's been hounded out. Would that put you off recording dissent in future?
No, it wouldn't put me off recording dissent. I've recorded dissent on a previous public board I was a member of. We've had votes on the SPA board in the past.
What was that, Mr. White?
That was NHS Lothian. It was many years ago.
Did the chair write to you to give you a telling off?
No.
Okay. So, in that case then, do you agree that Andrew Flanagan has overstepped the mark in sending that letter to Moy Ali?
I don't know any of the background of the conversations.
But you are an experienced public board member.
Well, I don't know any of the background of the conversations that Moy and Andrew had prior to the meeting or about these matters individually between themselves. So I don't understand that relationship. and what was going on. I think that would be a matter for you to question them.
With respect, all the correspondence is now in the public domain. I'm sure you've been following the previous sessions of this committee very carefully, at least I hope that you have been. All the facts are out there. Have you not been paying attention?
I have, but I don't know if there are other matters out with the correspondence and possibly conversations that might impact on it.
So what could possibly justify Andrew Flanagan's letter to Moy Ali?
I don't know. I didn't write the letter.
Okay. So when Moy Ali says that she feels bullied because she got a letter and other people didn't, and other board members are clearly being silent and not prepared to stick up for her, do you think you're complicit in the way that Andrew Flanagan has treated Moy Ali?
The letters and the matter were a matter between them, and I understand Moy has, I've been told Moy has taken issues up elsewhere, and clearly it's coming up here. I would have thought that was a matter for due process, but in terms of the board decision, the decision had been made, and Moy chose to resign. Now, I don't know why Moy chose to resign. I haven't, you know, I'm not part of the private deliberations.
But if you recall, Andrew Flanagan asked her to consider resigning because she was recording her dissent. You do recognise that?
I do recognise that, but I think it's still a matter for the individual, and had I been in that position, probably, well, I don't know how I felt at that time. I don't think I would have resigned.
Okay. Do you have any regrets about Moy Ali's resignation or the circumstances that may have surrounded it?
I wasn't close to the circumstances surrounding it.
That's fine, but you do recognise that the reputation of the SPA is in crisis?
I don't believe it's in crisis. I believe we are an improving board and an improving organisation.
So you think you have the confidence of the public and this Parliament?
Well, that we still have to continue to improve on public confidence in the organisation, and we are working to do that. The publication of the draft 2026 strategy, the public consultation that is ongoing on that, and our efforts to improve the working relationship with senior police officers such that we are taking the strategic direction of policing forward in Scotland is the purpose of the board, and on all of that we are improving, and I expect to see a full strategy published soon that will make for better policing for Scotland.
I don't have any more questions for